So in the recent month or two, we've been testing a lot of laptops, and I think we went across like a total of 4 laptops, and we've been teasing the XPS 13-9300 in 2 of those laptop reviews because both of them are premium thin and light laptops. We just got the XPS 13 here, and yeah, we'll be reviewing this after we're done with this laptop as well. There are differences between these 2 laptops, which hopefully the next video we'll be reviewing this laptop. And now we have been saving this for last, and finally we have the time to go through it. So let me share with you my experience after using the Dell XPS 13-9300 for I think about a month and a half now. So first off, let's talk about the design of the brand new Dell XPS 13-9300. Dell revamped the entire design this time around, and they've also changed the color scheme of it. So what we can see here is still using an aluminum unibody all around, this time with diamond cut sidewalls, which is why it's a bit shiny at the sides here. It's still showing bare metal, by the way. And this time around, Dell is including 2 colors for the Dell XPS 13-9300, but both of them have the same lid color. The only thing that's different is the inside. So if you choose the black color variant, then the trims here will be black, and this deck here will be black as well. But it's also using a completely different material, which is carbon fiber. The white color version that we have here is using Fiberglass. I think it's Fiberglass. I can't really remember the name, but anyway, the texture here is a bit different than carbon fiber, but it still feels good, and if there's any stain or any marks, grease marks especially, you can wipe it off very easily. Dell also claims that they have anti-yellowing and anti-UV kind of coating on it, so those are more towards a long-time user experience, but so far we've been seeing this thing performing really well through my abuse. And since we are talking about the palm rest, let's just start off with the trackpad. So it's still using the typical XPS trackpad, it's still glass, and this time around the trackpad has grown considerably in size. It's still not as big to the point where it affects your user experience, but it's really good to use. It tracks well, it's using Windows Precision trackpad drivers, and overall trackpad experience, I love it. No complaints there. Okay, now for the keyboard itself. The Dell XPS 13-9300. This time, this entire generation of XPS laptops, Dell changed it to use edge-to-edge keyboard design with bigger keys as well. And this time around with the traditional rubber dome keyboards, I think that Dell really made the keyboard feel a lot better in terms of typing because the overall travel distance is slightly longer than before compared to the maglev keys that we've used last year, which are linked to the review at the top right corner there. And the key switch themselves are a bit softer than maglev keys as well, so I do find myself typing a lot longer on this keyboard in terms of endurance. But the Dell XPS 13-9300, they did change a bit of things in terms of the keyboard layout itself. So Dell integrated both the power button and fingerprint scanner into this single button at the top right corner of the keyboard, which I personally prefer this button to be moved outside of the keyboard array, and this position should be the delete key in terms of how I personally would prefer my keyboards to be. And another complaint that I have here is the print screen key. It's nested under the F10 key, but maybe just swap it with the insert key right here because I would like a dedicated print screen key instead of a dedicated insert key. So like previous generation of Dell XPS laptops, right here we still can log in via Windows Hello facial recognition, which is why they have a webcam integrated at the top of the display where it should be. I'm kinda amazed that Dell can fit in an entire webcam with such thin bezels at the top together with Windows Hello, and it just works. It works really well. And like I said just now, the bezels around the screens are very thin this time around on all 4 edges, by the way, and thanks to its brand new redesigned position of the hinge, the bottom bezel is partially hidden when you open it up. So when you look at it at a certain angle, like from where I am now, only half of the bottom bezel is visible. And the display on the Dell XPS 13-9300, this is a 13.4-inch IPS LCD display The variant that we have here is in 4K resolution, and it is also touch capable, which is something that I like. But Dell does offer this laptop in 1080p resolution as well, but there is no touchscreen variant, which is something to take note of. And overall colors is amazing. I do really like this display a lot, and Dell also advertised that this laptop can go up to 500 nits in terms of brightness, which is just magnificent to be used outdoors. And before we forget, Dell is also using a 16:10 aspect ratio this time around, which means that extra vertical space is very useful if you want to read emails or documents, which is especially useful for this kind of thin and light laptops. And now comes the performance of the Dell XPS 13 9300. We got the highest end version this time around, which is using an Intel Core i7-1065G7, I think. It's using the new 10nm Ice Lake based processor, which means that Intel is touting the integrated graphics to be better than before. And we also tried some lighter titles like Valorant. It does run beyond 60 FPS at its lowest graphical settings at 1080p, but then again, we still suffer from stuttering from time to time. But despite this laptop using a relatively low-powered CPU, it still manages to perform very well in terms of thermals. So when we open it up, we can see that Dell, for some reason, is using a single thick boy heat pipe in this laptop itself, and it is shared between two fans and two heatsinks. So yes, the fan noise is lower than before, but overall thermal performance is just way too good. I did not feel any warmth underneath the laptop. Well, not really that warm to the point where it burns my hands like the Huawei MateBook X Pro, but yeah, it is very good in terms of thermals. And since we got it open, we should talk about the upgradability. And the only thing that can be swapped here is the M.2 SSD. Everything else is soldered, including your RAM, your Wi-Fi card. So you need to decide how much RAM you need right out of the gate when you are buying this laptop. And one more thing that we have to highlight here is the 52 watt-hour battery in this laptop. So the battery life that we got out of this laptop is about 6 hours at most. Do keep in mind that we are using the 4K variant, 4K screen here, which is just kind of power hungry compared to 1080p, but thanks to its Intel chip, it can still last for about 6 hours from our workload. And then before I forget, there are still a bit more things that I want to highlight, especially the ports itself. This time around, Dell still includes 2 Thunderbolt ports, one on each side, which is excellent, so I can charge it either side of the laptop. And here we also have the headphone jack, which is once again nice to have, and a micro SD card reader. It's increasingly rare, but still nice for Dell to include this in the laptop itself. And one more thing, this laptop has a marvelous hinge which can do this. It's not really a big deal. And one more important thing that you can either opt in or disable in the BIOS itself is the auto turn on function. So as you can see here, I actually turned off the laptop, but when you open the lid, it will wake up or just boot up by itself. You can disable this in BIOS, but I just find it a bit interesting to point out, I guess. Overall, the Dell XPS 13 9300, it starts at a price of about 6,000 something ringgit. It's a very solid type of premium thin and light laptops. Dell stuck with the traditional design right here, but of course it works because of its solidity. And one important thing when it comes to Dell's design philosophy, I think, is the way that they just wanna hammer down and get all of the basics necessities right, like the hinge, the screen quality, the keyboard. They got every of those things right this time around, and I just love this machine because of those things. And yeah, I think that's all we have to say about the Dell XPS 13 9300, and we see you in the next video. Do leave your questions down in the comment section below if you have any, and we'll try to answer them whenever we can.